Hi there, I'm Kevin Benedict, Senior Vice President of Solution Strategy at Regalix, and I'm excited today in this series, this Digital Expert Series, to have as my guest John Hans. John, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So you're with Orbital Insight.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know Orbital Insight, I've been following them for a few years. I've got friends that work here, and it's just, to me, seems like one of the most interesting technologies out there and strategies for companies to implement. So why don't you introduce Orbital Insight to the audience who hasn't necessarily followed you?
Sure, absolutely. So Orbital Insight was founded in late 2013 by Dr. James Crawford. We call him Jimmy. Basically, his background is he has a PhD in artificial intelligence, super smart guy, one of the leaders in artificial intelligence. And what he founded was this company called Orbital Insight. And what we do is we combine geospatial data, which includes satellite imagery, cell phone pings, ship pings, etc., and combines that using artificial intelligence and also data science to create insights into the world.
So if they have blind spots in their operations, you guys provide situational awareness through the use of sensors, right?
Exactly right. Well, satellite imagery and artificial intelligence, but absolutely. So and I think every organization has a ton of blind spots, whether they know it or not.
So John, your title is Head of Research and Analysis. What kinds of things do you get to do in your daily job?
Yeah, sure. So my role here is mainly to figure out how our clients, whether they're investors or corporates, can figure out how to either make money or save costs. And at the end of the day, it's about creating the ROI for our clients.
Got it. So your founder has a background and a PhD in the area of artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about the role artificial intelligence plays in satellite imagery.
Absolutely. So, just thinking about many years ago with satellite images, what people did was they counted the individual cars or the individual trucks, which is not...
So you mean the satellite's taking a picture of a parking lot?
Exactly right.
Okay.
So if you think about our existing consumer product, for example, we cover 250,000 parking lots in the US. Mm-hmm. And we have actually done some analysis, and it would take literally millions of people counting these cars every day in order to process it on a daily basis, which we do with AI. We have our algorithms on the AWS cloud, and we count every car that we see every single day. So it's really a scalable process, whereas previously, without these convolutional neural networks, it's really not possible, not feasible, and definitely not feasible from a cost perspective, even if you found all the people that wanted to count cars.
So John, let's set some context here for our audience out there today. Who wants to monitor 250 parking lots? And who wants to count cars?
Absolutely. Well, first off, we do, but also a lot of our clients as well. So whether they're the investors at the various funds, investment firms, as well as the different corporations monitoring whether it's private companies, whether it's their competitors, which are also public. There's a lot of demand for counting cars, trucks. In addition to counting cars, obviously, we have different algorithms for counting ships, trucks, mines, roads, buildings, building type, fracking, oil, agriculture. So it's not just counting cars, but just thinking about all these things, whether you are an investor from the outside trying to figure out, hey, what's actually happening with this investment or this company, or if you're in the industry and you're saying, hey, what are my competitors doing? Or if you're a CEO of one of these companies saying, hey, let me get greater granularity as to what's actually happening on a daily basis, instead of that weekly or monthly report that comes from my managers.
Got it. But I think the people in the audience are still going to say, why are you counting cars? Mm-hmm. What is why do they want to know how many cars are in a parking lot?
Great question. So to that point, if you think about, if we count all the cars in Walmart's parking lots, that's a good indicator for revenue, right? As an investor, from an investor point of view.
But maybe not just one snapshot, but a snapshot over time, right?
It's absolutely. So it's taking photos every single day and counting those cars, and then it's created a time series out of that. It's a combination of the artificial intelligence convolutional neural network and as well as the data science. So using that, you're able to create a time series and say, hey, are people shopping more or less at Walmart? And then beyond that, you're able to splice things. Maybe you want to compare California versus Washington versus other geographies. So these are things which are now possible, whereas previously, even if you were a competitor in the company, you couldn't get that data very easily.
Wow. So I can imagine that in the past that was only available to like government agencies and things that own satellite. How do you guys get access to imagery today?
So we have we're very fortunate to have great partners in the form of Digital Globe, Airbus, Planet, and many other partners as well. In addition, we have great partners in the form of venture capital investors, Sequoia Capital Management, Google Ventures, Incutel, and many others. So this kind of foundation has allowed us to have all the raw ingredients we need in order to actually create the insights that our customers want.
Wow, so you aren't just looking at satellite imagery. You talked about looking at mobile data.
Yep.
Talk to me about what other kinds of data you're able to combine to create a holistic picture.
Absolutely. So if you think about mobile data, for example, that is quite complementary to the satellite imagery in the sense that you also have additional metadata, for example, how long a person is shopping somewhere or staying somewhere, whether they're a new customer or not. And beyond mobile data, you can think about, hey, what else is useful? For example, 3D maps. When there's a flood, for example, Hurricane Harvey, we combine the 3D maps and are able to tell, hey, how much water is in different areas, how much flooding has occurred, and beyond that, when does the recovery actually happen? So these are all things where you combine them together, combine them with AI, combine them with data science, and you're able to get a full picture, whereas previously everything was scattered and very raw and unusable.
So where do you get like mobile data? Who provides that kind of content?
We have partners, we just can't disclose the names.
Okay, got it. That's fascinating to me. So the role of artificial intelligence in combining all of this is what? Like, how do you approach a project?
Absolutely. So we think about, generally, doesn't matter first. What are we actually looking at? How often do we need to see it in order to get something very meaningful? Using that Walmart example, if we saw the Walmart parking lot once a year, it's probably not a high enough cadence to actually get anything meaningful. So these are all the things that we think about. Is the resolution high enough? Is the revisit rate high enough? What are we actually looking at? Is what we think we're looking at actually what the customer wants or what we want, or we think it's relevant to somebody? So these are all things that we care about. And for all the use cases, fortunately, they are exactly, we vet things out very, very well here, and we found very good use cases.
Very good. So what industries are you targeting with this rich content?
Absolutely. So it's really about, it's almost every industry in a sense. So think about the investment side, the corporate side, whether if we're looking at, let's say, a truck manufacturing location, it's not, then we think about, okay, who cares about this, right? And what cadence do they need? What resolution do they need? What do they actually care about? So let's say truck manufacturing, we're looking at employees and we're looking at inventory. Well, dealerships care about how much inventory, right? And the suppliers to those truck manufacturing, auto manufacturing parts, those guys care. And also the investors within that company also cares. And the debt holders also care. And the competitors also care. So generally when we find that we have a very good use case, we actually find a very large audience. It's really about a 360-degree view because a lot of different people care, even though they are connected from a central node, but there's a huge audience that cares about these types of things.
Can't they just read the earnings report and know this stuff?
That's a great question. So for earnings reports, unfortunately, obviously it's lagged. That's one part which is relevant for the public equity or debt investors. The second part is some of these earnings reports aren't very granular, right? Walmart doesn't disclose how they're doing on the West Coast versus East Coast. You just get a top line nationwide revenue number and whatever other financials. So it's really about that granularity and that speed in terms of edge. It's not just saying, hey, we're gonna beat the quarterly reports. It's really about saying, hey, you thought Walmart is doing this in this location, is it really? And from there, you can make a better informed decision, whether you are an investor or a corporate.
So John, talk to me about you personally. What projects have you found most interesting?
Oh, so much. So obviously our existing products are the consumer product, which is looking at over 85 publicly traded retailers in the US, looking at car counts. We also do Another product we have is the global energy product. And what that is looking at the floating roof tanks and using trigonometry and two shadows to understand both the capacity and the volume of crude within each crude tank for all 25,000 crude tanks that we found in the world.
Wow, so let me understand this. There's oil tanks, and as they have volume of oil, the roof's raised.
Exactly right.
Or the roof's lower.
Exactly right.
But the shell is still there.
Exactly.
So it's only the roof going up and down.
Yep.
So you're able to look through satellite imagery, and you're able to triangulate through time of day and where the satellites are located.
Exactly right. So if you're able to tell, what time it is, where the sun is, you're able to calculate, hey, what is the actual height of that tank? Therefore the volume, and then the roof within that is the volume within that capacity.
So if you look at 25,000 worldwide tanks, that gives you an idea of how much oil capacity is in storage today.
Exactly right. Exactly.
So then that can impact markets and everything
Absolutely.
else.
Hugely important. And then beyond that, we're working on the agriculture product as well. Right now is U.S. corn and soy, and then we're going to broaden beyond that. So a lot of interesting use cases there, whether you're trading futures, whether you're trading some of the publicly traded stocks, which like seeds or ethanol. So there's a lot of different use cases. Just from that's just from the investor side. If you're thinking about from the corporate side, if you're selling seeds, even right to these different farmers, you want to know which farmers are doing well, which farmers are not doing well. So,
So talk to me about how you look at biological things like farms and the crops. Can you identify what's planted in each of those crops from space?
That's something we're actually currently working on in terms of the crop identification. But we can absolutely tell you the chlorophyll level and things like that. And to your point about other data that we use to boost our satellite imagery, there's weather data, temperature, rainfall, soil moisture, things like that, which also help in building this very cohesive understanding of what exactly is growing, how well over time. And from that, you can get a better understanding of yield.
Got it. So your analysis is not just about getting the data, but getting the data in a timely manner.
Exactly. If we told you what happened with Walmart 1 year ago to tomorrow, it's nice, but it's not worth anything.
Right. So companies are paying you guys to give them timely information that perhaps was never available before.
Exactly.
And if parts of it were available, you're combining it to give a holistic picture.
Exactly. It's all about timeliness and the transparency and the granularity.
Got it. Talk to me about, so you gave use cases, the crops and some of the oil tanks. Are there others that have been some of the most challenging to you?
There's a lot of new exciting stuff that we think is super going to be very, very big because it's transform industries. For example, we're looking at features. So what I mean by that is, think about if you're looking at a new building, right, or old building, you're able to tell, hey, how big is the actual lot? How many trees are there? Or what percent of the location is trees? What percent is cement? What percent is wood? What is the roof made out of, right? What is the building made out of? So these are all things where it's beyond just counting. So being able to identify the different features. And then from that's useful. You think about who cares about that. It's the home builders, it's the insurance guys, it's the people selling those houses, and on the commercial side, it's the people renting those out, or the brokers. So there's obviously a huge ecosystem around that just from this as well. So a lot of very interesting stuff. Some additional stuff is, for example, refineries, and looking at refineries in terms of both the oil side, but also the steel side. So, talking about tariffs and trade wars like this, some of the stuff we've actually already done is steel smelters and aluminum smelters. So on being able to understand which ones are online or offline based on the heat signature, because there's actually different satellites which are able to tell you, hey, is something online or offline?
So it's not just about photographic imagery from space.
Right.
You're able to do chemical analysis. You talked about chlorophyll.
Yep, chlorophyll. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So what kinds of lenses can you actually use, and what kind of data can you actually get?
Yeah, those are some great ones. It really depends on the satellites. Different satellites have different sensors. Some of them are government, public satellites. Some of them are private from Digital Globe, Airbus, Planet, etc. Like I mentioned before. So there's a ton of different ones with tons of different sensors. so very, very exciting use cases, and we're trying to use as many as we can.
Can you give us just some ideas of the kinds of sensors? Because a lot of us have never kind of jumped into this space.
Sure.
So a camera is a sensor.
Camera, absolutely.
Then what? Thermal
infrared. Thermal infrared, exactly right. So you're able to tell the heat signatures. And also it's called MSAVI and EVI, which are basically just to make it easy, the chlorophyll levels or the health of a plant.
So you can see if a plant has enough water, is healthy,
Exactly.
is weak, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Wow, so I can imagine you could predict things like crop failures in different regions of the world.
Exactly.
So people could pre-plan, if agencies were there, pre-plan to have support and help in those areas.
Exactly right.
Got it. So going forward 3 years, what do you see kind of changing in your world in 3 years? Because this to us is so space age already.
Right, right.
But you live in this. So when you look forward and you're like, oh, just wait till next year or the next year or 3 years out. So what do you see coming down?
Oh, a ton. I mean, in terms of just to sum it up very easily, it's really about the density of information and the breadth of it. So if you think about the number of satellites being launched, that's constantly going up. Some of our friends at Planet, last year they launched I think 88 with one satellite, and that cadence is constantly improving with the help of SpaceX and others. So the number of satellites is constantly going up. There's also new things like blimps, drones, which will also be very helpful in addition to the geolocation data. So the density of information is constantly increasing. Then we think about, okay, density is increasing, what else is happening? Well, the breadth is also expanding. So right now, there's obviously a lot of coverage in the US. Well, there's actually a lot of coverage everywhere, but we're gonna be expanding the products out in order to look at Asia, Europe, Australia, parts of Africa, South America. So these are all things where it's both the quantity of data that we can work with is increasing, and then the number of dishes, if you will, is also increasing.
Got it. So I can imagine just in our brief conversation here, some of this data is incredibly rich. You must run into problems with security once in a while from government agencies saying, let's not share that. How does that work with you guys?
Great question. So generally for the locations that the government does not want us to look at, that's actually already screened on the satellite side, on the hardware side.
Okay.
So if we did want to say, hey, we wanted to look at this location, we would never get that image in the first place. So that is fortunately quite good. In terms of privacy issues, fortunately, even the highest resolution that is legally allowed, you and I, if we were to stand outside, would be 1 pixel. So you literally can't tell someone's face; it'd just be a black dot. So there's that those barriers already in place to prevent us from doing anything that we accidentally might do.
Got it. So let me just, in wrapping up here, talk to me about who should be interested.
Oh, great question. Terrific question. I think everybody. I mean, to be honest, if you think about whether you're selling stuff online even, right? Are your warehouses doing well? Is your competitor hiring more people? Or do they expect more things? Whether you're an investor or a corporate, I think it's hugely relevant. I think if you have a need for greater transparency, faster information, and you want that in a very easy to use package without hiring an army of data scientists yourself, I think that's us.
And what does your business model look like? So if somebody approaches you, is it just a subscription service or is everything a custom project?
Great question. So we have existing products, which are the consumer product, the oil energy product, and the ag product. If you want to do something custom, we're always happy to speak with you, talk about the use cases, whether it's feasible or not. Yeah, so literally any way you want, we have. If you want to ingest it via an API, you can use our website. We can send you the file literally any way you want.
Brilliant. So I want to thank the audience, number one, for joining us here. I want to thank John.
Thank you
for sharing this information. And anybody that's interested in information, orbitalinsight.com, right?
That's right.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.